Hello and welcome to the Cradle Bytes, where we bring you the latest from West Asia. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am head of news for the Cradle. I'm joined by my colleague, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami. And before we start, I just want to let you know to expect a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup later this week. And with that, let's begin. We want to discuss the aftermath of the dismissal of Israeli defense minister, former defense minister Yoav Galant last week. He was sacked by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as votes were getting counted in the U.S. election, right? In a very calculated, highly political move by the Netanyahu government, finally getting rid of, of an official that Netanyahu had already fired once in March 2023, but then due to popular discontent and also pressure from the White House, he was forced to take him back. Since the start of the Gaza genocide, these two have been at each other's throats. Gallant very critical of lack of goals from the government in regards to Gaza, in regards to Lebanon. Painted often as a moderate by Western outlets, by Western officials. Let's not forget this is the man who said we are fighting human animals and we need to act accordingly about Palestinians in Gaza, and we have seen the outcome of that. So this is what Israeli moderates, look like, I guess. The aftermath of his sacking, we're talking now about officials within the most extreme religious part of the Netanyahu government rejoicing at him leaving. Why? Because of what it means for the West Bank and because of what it means for Gaza as well. Galant's last message before leaving to captive families was the army has nothing left to do inside Gaza. There's no reason for the Israeli army to be still in Gaza. So, with that being said, Karim, what has been the aftermath and what have we seen so far after Galant's sacking?
Yeah, it's crazy that they consider Galant as a moderate after over 50,000 of deaths across
At least.
Palestine and Lebanon. Yeah, it's crazy. Now Katz replaced him, and Katz, yeah, he doesn't have military background as Galant. Galant served around 40 years in the army, and he knows everything regarding the army and its tactics. This tells us first that Netanyahu wanted to get rid of like the American voice inside his cabinet, which was Galant, and American officials expressed that. They said that he was our trusted guy inside Netanyahu's cabinet. So currently we can say that Netanyahu is the defense minister of Israel because, of course, whatever he wants will happen. Now nobody can say no to him. And of course, he did this on the eve of the U.S. elections because nobody was paying attention. And they always do this. Yani, for instance, in 1982, they invaded Lebanon on the eve of the World Cup. They did it before, in 2006 also. So this shows us now that Netanyahu is now more powerful than ever before. Now the stars of his cabinet are Smotrich and Ben Gavir. And following, of course, the elections in the United States, Smotrich came out and said that they want to annex the West Bank. And he literally said that, he said, quote, I have issued instructions to prepare for extending sovereignty over the West Bank. He means Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank. Israel's sovereignty must expand to include the West Bank by 2025. So this is very dangerous. Now, of course, we know they occupy most of Gaza, and of course they want to occupy permanently, as we can see, the northern of Gaza, and now they want to take the West Bank. And we know because Galant said it. And after he was fired by Netanyahu, he gave a speech, and in this speech he said that there's three major points that happened that made Netanyahu fire him and bring the Minister of Foreign Affairs, country running as the defense minister. He said first the ultra-orthodox law, which means that the government will still pay for the families of the ultra-Orthodox, although they don't serve in the army. Gallant wanted them to serve in the army, and he made many steps for that, but they were not allowing him. So I think after the new minister, this will not be like something to talk about in Israel. خلاص, the ultra Orthodox will like pray for Israel and pray for Israeli army as they do, but they will not be part of the army, and they will take money as any other entity or other group in Israel that
Yeah,
take money.
because one of Galant's main concerns was the shortage of troops that the Israeli army is facing, and also in regards to the reservists, right? They keep talking about how reservists are burnt out, how there's a silent crisis within the army with refusal to serve. This is what prompted the defense ministry to issue about 7,000 draft orders for the ultra-Orthodox. And the numbers of those who actually went, to the recruitment offices is absurd. It's very small. You're talking about just dozens out of thousands who were summoned because the rabbis themselves were telling them disregard, dodge this draft order, essentially. And as we said, the happiest people at this point about Galant leaving are, an Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich, as you said, talking about de facto annexation of the West Bank. They opposed this law. They opposed the draft bill. It caused real tension. And now, as you're saying, Israel Katz, foreign minister, for what, like the past 3 months? He's only been on the post for a very, very little. Now the new defense minister, in his place, Gideon Sar. Gideon Sar, who about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, Netanyahu was looking to replace Galant with him, right? Like one of the many attempts that Netanyahu had made to get rid of Galant included replacing him with Gideon Sar, also as a kind of a pawn for the extremist Zionist elements that Netanyahu has allied himself with, that make up the Israeli government, that have the significant support of the Israeli population, right? We cannot fall into the trap here of a Western media talking about these being fringe elements or being, something or other. No, they have popular support, and I think you can see reflected also, there were protests when Galant left. Opposition leaders were saying, you need to take to the streets because democracy and whatever, the speech is. And the protests were there, but they weren't massive. They haven't really kept up. There seems to be a complete agreement with the policies of the new Israeli cabinet, so to speak, including, now you have Katz talking about the time is now to strike Iran. He gave comments saying there's not going to be a ceasefire in Lebanon. We already know there's not going to be a ceasefire in Gaza. We see what's happening in the north. We see what they're doing in the West Bank, which is becoming increasingly more violent. The situation more precarious for Palestinians, and now there's really no slowdown. I think Galant when he leaves, and he says the army has no reason to stay in Gaza, and he tries to kick the government a bit. I think that was kind of like the final gasp of what you could say was like this attempt from the White House to kind of steer Israel towards maybe not a ceasefire, because I also don't think the White House wants a ceasefire, but at least allow some more aid into Gaza. At least don't bomb so many hospitals so often. Like this kind of like small little like changes that they would make. We're not going to see that anymore. It's gone,
crazy.
and now it's really just the time for scorched earth for Israel.
Yeah, and what happened is like an insult for the United States. Imagine that they aided Israel militarily and politically, and they created like a political umbrella and defensive umbrella for Israel. Biden did everything they want, and they gave them the bunker busters to like proceed with their assassinations and all of this. And suddenly, the moment or moments before the elections, he did this. It's like a stab on the back, and that's what Israel usually do to their allies. It's very common in the world. People say that the United States sell their allies and stab them on the back, but currently I am seeing that Israel officially stabbed the United States and Biden in the back because he did everything they want, and suddenly the moment when the election started, he removed the U.S.
Yeah.
guy in his cabinet. And I just want to follow. So we talked about point A, which was the ultra-Orthodox, the Haredim, and this is an internal issue. But we have B and C. It's an issue that affects the region because first, he said also Netanyahu didn't want him because he wanted a deal with Hamas in Gaza. He wanted the captives to come back, and Netanyahu don't want that. And this means that Netanyahu doesn't want to stop the war, despite whatever we hear in the news. For instance, they say they are sitting, okay, they are writing a new
Proposal.
for the Palestinians, but eventually what's happening and the actions on the ground tell us otherwise. And of course, he talked about that the Netanyahu and his office, they didn't want an official investigation committee to look into the events of October 7th. So this also is very important to talk about because this means that if the cabinet was responsible of what happened, this means that Netanyahu will be prosecuted, and that's I think that he doesn't want.
I mean,
And
on top of everything, he's already, facing the corruption charges from his previous administrations. He's facing the leaked documents scandal that say that he apparently, changed the transcripts of official discussions and then had his office leak them. It's a whole thing, right? And now on top of that, you have exactly what you're describing. Netanyahu is just accumulating, criminal cases against him, and the only way to shield himself is to, surround himself with power. As you said a few minutes ago, I think it was very correct. Now Netanyahu is the defense minister of Israel. Remember last year, Netanyahu wanted to be the Supreme Court of Israel, and I'm guessing those plans might still be, he just not ended, but just delayed down the road.
yeah, and of course we have to remind people also that Netanyahu is against the two-state solution, and of course Smotrich and Ben Gavir, they are his allies, and they are the far right of the government that he's the head of, and they all don't want two-state solution. Rather, they want to take all West Bank. What will happen following that? We don't know. They will commit atrocities and ethnic cleansing as they did in Gaza, or they will make a deal with Jordan. Nobody knows. And of course, many people will say Jordan will not allow this. Jordan will not allow this. But till now, I saw that Jordan allowed everything. And on the ground, despite what they say, I don't care what the politicians say. I care what do I see. I see them aiding them with their defense against the drones from Iraq, against the two retaliations from Iran. They are providing them with food, vegetables. So
remember that in the aftermath of October 7, it was Jordanian security services who were interrogating Palestinians in the West Bank, and there was that report that came out a few months ago. So it's not at all, a stretch to consider that. We have seen it happen time and again. It's the same with Egypt, the same with the Gulf nations. But now the question really remains, how is this going to, we should just quickly touch upon the decision to be made to fire Galant as the election in the U.S. is taking place. In my view, it has to do, the Netanyahu office must have been getting the results. And they must have seen, that Trump was ahead, by a significant margin, as we saw eventually, as we saw in the final results. So, of course, it was like Christmas for him, right? I mean, and also, again, with a little parenthesis, because that is not to say that the Joe Biden government or a potential hypothetical Kamala Harris government would have been very tough on Netanyahu or in Israel themselves. As you were saying, like with Jordan, we have already seen what the relationship actually looks like. But the difference now is, that with Trump, there seems to be just more of a willingness to, if they were attempting to, keep up some pretension about, we are actually trying to protect some the civilian life, which is something they actually continue to say. Now it's gone. Now it's just do as you will, finish the job. This is what Trump has said. We are seeing the officials he's speaking for his cabinet. With this talk about the West Bank, with the situation in North Gaza, with the situation in Lebanon as well, right? With the attacks against Lebanon, the lack of a political solution, this really just seems like on the day of the U.S. elections, what the Netanyahu government said was, "It's time to just step on the gas pedal, go full speed ahead."
Yeah, when you talked, you mentioned what's happening in Lebanon politically. It's insane. And we have Mikati, who's the prime minister of Lebanon, and currently we don't have a president. And of course, he's talking as if he's like the ruler of Lebanon. He should be, but in this circumstances, he's not. And he's talking on behalf of Hezbollah, and he's talking about on behalf of Lebanon, although there is no agreement. And he's saying that the government should have all the weapons, although we are in the middle of war, and who's fighting is Hezbollah, which is considered a legal resistance movement in Lebanon because we have lands occupied by Israel. And now he's saying that this is the chance for Lebanon to get its sovereignty back and to get back to Arabs. And by Arabs, he means Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And I think even foreigners know that the least Arab states currently are these two, in addition to Jordan, for instance. Yani, I don't know, he's out of touch, and they are talking as if there's a deal. And he's saying, yani, in 2 weeks, we are talking to the Americans to stop the war. Although the new defense minister of Israel, he was very clear. And he said it. He said the war will not stop. Yeah. He said that now it's our chance to expand the war in Lebanon. And
exactly.
Of course,
that's the aim.
Yeah,
that's the aim of it. Okay. Go ahead.
He's delusional, and I think also he's stabbing the Lebanese on the back. Maybe he can't say so after the war ends, and we'll see what will happen. But currently, you are fighting, you are protecting your country. There's people in the south protecting their country and their villages and their homes. And the prime minister says this is our opportunity to take the weapons out of these people that live on the borders since like thousands of years. These people that are protecting the south of Lebanon from an Israeli invasion. Currently, he's saying this is our opportunity to take their weapons. That's crazy. And I feel disgraced because I am Lebanese and I am from the south. I feel disgraced that this is our prime minister who's serving currently. And just for people to know, this guy is worth $5 billion and his brother worth $4 billion. And of course, all of his assets and the money which he made it from the West. And of course, they control him. He knows that they can pull out these $9 billion from his bank account and his family's bank account anytime. And that's what he's doing. And yesterday, his speech in the so-called the Arab Muslim Summit or whatever you name it, I tried to watch it. I watched like 15 minutes and I couldn't. Yani, the idea of this summit where he says this stuff as if, okay, Israel failed militarily, now we're stepping in politically, we, meaning Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, and we can collect all these countries together to say this is the opportunity to make a new Lebanon and to make Lebanon return to its Arab friends. And it's crazy as Lebanese, and we look onto this. And yesterday I was sitting with my friend watching some of what was said, and he's telling me what they are saying. What they are saying on the ground, it's completely different. And they don't want to pressure Israel, or they portray for you that they want to pressure Israel, although they can't, and they know they can't. But on the other hand, they want to pressure Lebanon to collect all the weapons from Hezbollah currently, and he's fighting Israel. You know, it's crazy, man. I can't say much, without cursing, and I don't want to curse.
No, I agree with you. I think it's shameful. It's an embarrassment in any country in the world. If this were to happen, if you have the political leaders talking about going against the people who are actually defending your land and aiding the enemy, it wouldn't stand, right? Like imagine this were to happen in Israel. Imagine this were to happen in the U.S. They would be like rounded up and thrown in jail immediately, as they should, right? It's treasonous. But I guess for a billionaire like Najib Mikati, who only represents his own interest and the interest of whatever the U.S. embassy says, the real power behind the power in Lebanon, it's just another day at work. And with that, I think we can wrap it up for this episode of the Cradle Bytes. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure to like, to subscribe, to share, to keep checking back for a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, which will be dropping later this week, and to check out our Patreon where you can support the work that we do here at the Cradle. We thank you so much again, and we'll see you soon.